Hello, hello.
Hey Marina, how you doing?
I'm going well. I'm doing well. I'm just double checking to make sure that our stream is coming online here, and it is. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay.
Yay.
How are
All
you,
right.
Ned?
I'm doing good, man. Oh, every week's a busy week, but I look forward to the Friday, not just because it's Friday, but because I get to spend some time with you. We get to learn something new. Well, I rhymed. Didn't mean to do that. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like the perfect way to send off the week because Fridays I have no energy for anything else, but learning something new and cool, like yeah, I'm in. How about you? What's going on?
It's been a week. I was off on Monday, and I was, as I was mentioning to you earlier, I got slammed with a bunch of meetings because when you have one less day, it doesn't really mean you're doing like less work. It's just all of it just gets crammed into 4 days versus five.
Sure.
But outside of that, it's a good week. It's the weekend, and I also want to say happy birthday, Mom. It's my mom's birthday today.
Happy
uh,
birthday, Marina's mom.
so we'll be heading out this evening to go have some dinner with her and Dad, and cut some cake and just hang out. I think she really just looks forward to seeing my kid. She doesn't really care about me
Oh
anymore.
yeah. No, that's totally the way it goes. My parents are, it's fine that I'm there, but really they just want to see the grandkids and hang out with them. And yeah, they really it's like being a parent again without any of the responsibility.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, that's exactly how my parents and my wife's parents behave. They're like, "Oh yeah, we have a little kiddo that's running around in our house that is pulling things left, right, and center, causing chaos." But also, they are so damn cute. So you
Yeah.
can't really, yeah. Anyways,
Yep.
what are we digging into today?
What are we doing? I guess I'm driving this week, and let's see. Let's summarize what we did last week, and then kind of what the plan is for this week. So you were driving last week. What did we accomplish? What were our goals, and what did we get accomplished last week?
So last week, I think, if I recall, because my memory is just shot. If I recall, we just got into some of the basics of Python, and we needed to set ourselves up to be able to consume an example from the AWS website for
Mm-hmm.
Bedrock.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to a point where we took some of the learnings from our little 5-minute 10-minute Python tutorial and implemented some of that within our example code, because we had to make some modifications. We had to know how that application was functioning, and all we were really doing was taking in user prompt, user input, and then outputting whatever Bedrock would return as information. And what was really cool about that was we also got to see how we can manipulate the model and change it. We actually ran into an issue where the model wasn't responding or returning anything because I had the wrong model turned on,
Mm-hmm.
and we fixed that and we saw it in action. So we should be ready to go. I think we'll continue off from that, and we're not here to do more Python fundamental stuff. But if folks have questions about how Python works, you feel free to ask. We've got the expert right here, Ned.
No. Let's get it straight. I'm definitely not the expert. Um, cool. Yeah. So I think today's plan might not involve quite as much Python. It'll certainly involve some. Um, but today's plan is to start implementing some of the other things we've talked about. So the grand design, the grand idea, right, was being able to feed in like a podcast and have it do all the work that I normally do manually for me. And part of that is the transcription process. And so what I'd like to do is stand up an S3 bucket where we can drop like an MP3 file or whatever format we want to use, and then feed that into the Amazon transcribe service and get back a transcript, and do that with Python. If we can do that today, I will be very happy.
I think we can accomplish it. I mean, we've gotten past some of the difficult parts of working inside of AWS IAM, as well as the basics of Python. So we should just be like smooth sailing at this point. We should have an agent by the end of this.
Oh my goodness! Just boom, done.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess let's dig in. Let's get started. What's the first thing we want to do? I should probably share my screen, huh?
So before you do, let me
Okay,
pull
yeah.
up the original diagram that we'd drawn out that first stream because I want
Okay.
folks to kind of get a sense of.
Oh, and I want to say hi to a couple people.
I totally will
Jubei,
see.
hello. Let's go. I agree. Absolutely. And who else do we have in here? Akansha, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Welcome, folks. Welcome, Shabai. Welcome, Akansha. Thanks for coming to the stream.
I see you've got the graphic up. Okay, so this was our original kind of idea, and I don't think it's changed significantly. MP3 into an S3 bucket, have AWS transcribe, do the transcription, and then the next step is to feed that into Bedrock, probably with a prompt of some kind.
So we kind of touched a little bit on this part last week, messed around with some VS Code and hacking away at how we can mess around and manipulate some of the examples. We're gonna touch on that S3 bucket. We need to figure that out because it's been a while. Like S3 is the longest running service that I'm aware of in AWS.
I believe SNS has a beat by
Oh, really?
a few months. Yeah. So the very, very first service I believe that was ever launched on Amazon was SNS, and then
Wow.
S3 came shortly thereafter. But feel free,
I gotta
viewers,
go
to
research this.
correct me on that. I know it was not S3, but S3 was a close follower. It was either SQS or SNS was the very first service. I only know that
Right.
because I've gone to a number of AWS user groups where that's become like a topic of conversation.
We're unfortunately both incorrect. It's actually Amazon SQS.
Oh, it was SQS. That was all right. I knew it was S something S, and all right. So I picked the wrong SXS service, SQS, secure queue. That makes sense. Simple queuing service. It was a basic queuing service, and then they were like, "Well, what are we queuing? What are we even doing?"
Then it was S3, and then it was EC2, and then the rest is just a number of 1,000,001 services that exist on the platform today.
Yeah, not to totally derail the conversation, but it's wild to think where things started that EC2 launched before VPCs were even a thing. So
Yeah.
at the time when you launched an EC2 instance, it was just got a public IP and it was available to the world. And it wasn't until later that they were like, ooh, we should probably create like virtual private clouds. That's what VPC stands for. And throw some networks down on those.
Launch in some security groups as well to, lock down communications where we needed to. I am totally with you.
So sorry, I didn't want to go down on too far of a tangent, but I do have a little bit of knowledge to share. Okay. So I guess the first thing to do is to provision an S3 bucket.
Let's go.
Okay.
Do I have to give you permissions to do that? Oh no, you have admin access. You can do almost anything you want inside of that environment.
All right, I have to pick a screen to share, and let's see. I think I want. Nope, that's the wrong one. Hold on. I have 3 screens. Okay. There we go. That's the one I wanted. Humble brag. I got 3 screens. No,
well, I've got 4, but
whoa. Okay, I had 4 for a very short period of time, and I found it overwhelming to the point of distraction. Like I could not function. Okay.
Yeah, I usually have a screen that just sits idle and does nothing, and it just shows the background. So it's not. It's like I've just got the screens just so that I can move stuff around, and then I can go pick it back. That's it. I don't really look at the screens. I've got this one main monitor that I stare at all the time.
Yeah, I have 2 screens that are really my main monitors, and then I have the third screen's my teleprompter, which is what I'm looking at right now. Is the reverse image of the teleprompter. So the only thing that usually sits on there is either a script or right now the StreamYard thing, so I can see you. I can see you're beautiful. Okay. So if we're gonna create an S3 bucket, I kind of feel like we should probably use Terraform for that. What are your feelings on that?
Let's go. I mean,
All
We've got the
right.
Terraform expert here, and if we don't use Terraform, I feel like we're doing ourselves a disservice here. I
See,
mean,
I
I can learn a
agree.
little bit from that bit too. So, why don't you give us a little bit of background as to what Terraform is
Yeah,
and why
man.
we use it today?
Okay, so I'm just setting up a file structure. Yeah, I mean, I've been using Terraform since 2016, and back then it was very different than it is now. But the core idea behind it is a way to reliably manage the life cycle of your infrastructure through code. And the language and the tooling in Terraform is cloud independent. It's not reliant on a particular cloud. So that means you can use a consistent language, whether you're working with AWS or Azure or even like SaaS services. Basically, anything with an API can be configured and managed through Terraform. So that really caught my eye when I was doing a lot of Azure and AWS consulting. And God, CloudFormation was such a pain in the tuchus.
It is. I mean, I've been having to work with CloudFormation for the last little while, and although it does feel similar to how you can build with Terraform, it's got its own little nuances and nits and whatnot. And hello,
Mhm.
Ryan, thanks for coming by to the stream. But yeah, I mean, I think that once you've figured out how to use Terraform, you pretty much have the ability to apply to various different environments as well. So
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I'll always bring up is the fact that it doesn't abstract away the complexity of the service you're using. So you still need to know how the services work on the cloud or platform you're using. It just gives you a common language to work with that infrastructure. So, like, I can't ask for just object storage. I have to ask for an S3 bucket. But before we do that, I need to set up the provider. So, my goodness, Copilot, you are so helpful. I don't think that's the current version of AWS, though. I think we're on version 5. But I mean, still pretty close, right?
yeah.
Um, so Terraform uses HCL or HashiCorp configuration language to express the configuration. And one of the things you need to do is tell it what providers you want to work with. And so I'm doing that by telling it, go get the AWS provider and give me the newest version that's in major version 5. So that's all this code is doing, is saying, yep, go grab that major version 5. Then we need to set up probably some inputs. Like, what do we need? What do we want to know to configure our S3 buckets? So let's set up a variable and maybe like a bucket prefix or a bucket name.
So
Ooh, bucket name.
yeah, so when you create this variables.tf file,
Hmm.
what that enables you to do is when you like roll through a Terraform apply, or even before you do, let's just say you mess up a variable, you can come and change it without having to actually change the, I don't know, the infrastructure side of it. Like, what I'm really going for is these are just placeholders that you can modify at any time, so someone
Hmm.
can reuse some of these Terraform files, I guess.
Yeah, the input variable doesn't define the value that should be used. It just creates a placeholder for that value.
Hmm.
So we'll supply the actual bucket name value when we run a Terraform plan. This is
Oh,
just giving us the ability to set that value and then
okay.
use that value in our configuration. So speaking of which, and Terraform doesn't require that you break things up into these multiple files. You can make it all as one file. I just find it's a lot easier to find things, especially when a configuration gets bigger, to break it
Hmm.
up into separate files. All
Yeah,
right.
this is very
So,
similar. Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say this is very similar to the way we build out Kubernetes manifests as well.
Hmm.
Normally, you'd want to break it up into separate files. Make sure that your application files are isolated from your infrastructure files as well. But yeah, this conceptually looks the
Yeah.
same.
And it's declarative, just like Kubernetes manifests are. You're not
Mhm.
telling it how to do something. You're just saying, "This is what I want. Go make it exist, please." Um, the closer parallel might actually be Helm charts, because Helm charts have a concept of like variables or inputs at least. Values, what do they call it? Yeah, like
Yeah.
values.yaml.
Yep.
All right, so I want to create an S3 bucket. I know that the name of the bucket has to be globally unique because that's like the requirement. So let's create like a unique name using a random integer. So I'm going to create a resource called random of type random integer bucket. And oh, that's good. Hey, Copilot again helping me. So this will give me a random number between 1,000 and 9,999. And then I can create a local value that's a combination of that integer and the variable bucket name. So whatever we use for bucket name, it'll use that bucket name dash the random integer. So if somebody else has that same bucket name, we won't have like a collision.
Okay, that's good to know. So while you're doing this, I'm going to go over to S3 myself and just take a look and see. You know, for those that don't know what S3 is, it's a storage backend or a storage system where you can store objects, files, whatever it is that you want. But it's actually a lot more elaborate than that. Like, I don't know how much has changed since I took AWS training, like probably back in 2017. Oh my gosh, 8 years ago is when I took that training class. But it's a place where you can store artifacts. And the elaborate part of it is the ability to lower your costs through various means of retention. What that means is like, if you're accessing something very frequently, chances are you want it to be on, very fast storage because you want to be able to access it within seconds or a sub-second. But sometimes you might have another requirement where you just need to long-term store something, and your retrieval might be maybe once every 30 days. Maybe you're doing backups to S3 and you're only, accessing them as an in demand or on needed basis, or as needed basis, I should say. So, it's a very, very powerful system. And, there are various ways to control your costs, but I've seen, instances where like you're using S3 to host like websites, static web pages, which blows my mind. So, yeah. I see a question here from Shavai. Marino, Ned, what would you recommend as the best process to get a bunch of CSV JSON files with unstructured data? Should it be a Bodo library only? Ooh.
I mean, are you trying to upload a bunch of files or process the
in
contents
S3.
of those files? I think that the question would be like, I mean, you can absolutely use a Bodo library to copy the files up if you want. If you're planning to do something with those files afterwards, then it's largely going to depend on what's your big plan for those files. Because maybe you want to put it in an unstructured database, like a NoSQL kind of thing, or maybe the contents of the files are super important and it's like a bunch of records you need to process or something like that.
Yeah, it's not like that 4 terabyte hard drive where I've just slapped a bunch of files in there because I haven't really spent the time to organize. And then, I have to connect it to a system and then index, and it'll take forever to index it.
Okay, so he wants to store them in NoSQL and run a vector search. So loading JSON into NoSQL. I don't know the answer to that. That's something I would have to research a bit about because I am not a database person. Databases scare me, and I run away from them.
So I'm actually curious, like, Shavai, are you planning to load them into a vector DB, something like Redis, or maybe even Valkey for that matter? I think that might be a better approach to allow you to index a lot faster versus maybe NoSQL. We'll find out soon what Shavai is looking to do.
All right. So what I added to the configuration for S3 bucket is I'm creating the bucket, and then I'm also creating an ACL associated with that bucket and setting it to private because we don't want this to be a public S3 bucket. And I think because I'm creating it, I should have permissions to upload files to it, but I guess we'll find out when we try to upload files. If we want to make a more permissive bucket policy, we can do that eventually. But let's like one thing at a time, right? And then I added a single output for the Terraform to just let us know what the S3 bucket name is when it's done provisioning. So we can use that in the rest of our deployment that we're kind of building up here. I think I've covered everything. So we can run some Terraform commands.
So we can store things like images in S3 store, while other metadata like JSON could be stored in either Redis, NoSQL DB, since we shouldn't store images in an S3 bucket, but we might have to. And store the S3 object URL. And Shiva, I think you should come on the stream and walk us through it. We might have to talk offline and figure that out together at some point in the future.
Yeah, I do. I like the idea of, for the image, if you put the image in S3 and then just put an S3 URL in the database pointing at it with any additional metadata that you want to store with it. But there's a lot of context.
Yeah.
All right, so I am going to run a few Terraform commands. I'm going to start by initializing Terraform, and all that does is it downloads the provider plugins behind AWS and Random, which are the two providers I'm using, and it establishes the backend, which we're not actually going to be using. But I'm noticing while it's doing that I need to go into the git ignore and add some Terraform stuff. I don't have to do that now, but I should definitely do it before we commit because I don't want to upload all those provider plugins and everything else. So I will update the git ignit. I'll update the git ignore before I commit any of this.
This reminds me of like last week when I was trying to upload our files from the previous stream. What ended up happening was like my Python environment kept getting uploaded too, even though I had it in the git ignore file. And I couldn't figure out like why until I like was doing some research and I found out I had to do a git like remove or something. I gotta pull up the history command or command history. Let me look this up and I'll tell you what I had to do. I had to do a git rm cached .git ignore.
Okay.
And I had to do that for my Python version, so it wouldn't upload that.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I see you've updated the git ignore for all the Python stuff, so we should be all right with that. I think I might actually. I have so many repositories that have Terraform stuff in it, and if I don't do this now, I will absolutely forget to do it later, and then I'll kick myself for it. I heard this phrase sometime last year, and it took me a while to process it, but I eventually did like, oh, I got it now. The phrase was, there's now and there's not now. And I was like, what does that mean? That's very interesting. And the more I thought about it, it's like, no, that fits into my general state of mind, which is like, there's either the stuff that I need to do and I need to do it now, or it's just not going to happen. Because I get distracted. So I just copied the contents of a git ignore for a Terraform repository and added it to our git ignore. So it won't upload the .terraform directory that has all those, has the plugins. Git gets mad when you start uploading hundreds of megs.
It seems to complain. Curious, what is the TF state and then what is the TF plan?
Right. So TF state is where Terraform stores the state data that maps what's in your configuration to the actual infrastructure you're managing. Now, best practice, we would eventually move this to the state to a remote location. But since we're just kind of kicking things around, I'm going to use the local file system to store state, and then I'll set it up eventually to be remote. Maybe that's a task for next week, is to operationalize our Terraform or something. So the file name will be terraform.tf state, which is why you don't want to commit that to Git. And tf plan is just any saved plan files, which I'll create one in a moment. And tf vars holds your variable values that you want to use. So I'm going to create another file here called terraform.tf vars. This will be our variable values. And what we said, bucket name. What do we want the bucket name to be? Main or?
Yeah, main works fine.
We'll do live stream on. I don't know if you can have uppercase, so I'm just going to do all lowercase.
That's fine. That works.
Okay, cool. All right, so I ran Terraform format or FMT, and that properly formats the files to the standard convention. It doesn't hurt anything. It just makes it more readable. And then I ran validate, which does a quick syntax and logic validation to make sure I don't have any glaring errors. So at this point, we're ready to run a Terraform plan, and we can save that plan to a TF plan file.
So what does the Terraform plan do?
Terraform. Oh, I don't know why Gemini has decided to start talking.
Oh no.
I invoked Gemini somehow. I don't know what magic words I said. Start talking. What did I do? Oh, I see. Because Windows. The Terraform plan does is like a dry run.
Oh,
it goes and it sees what infrastructure it needs to provision to make reality match what's in your configuration. And then it shows you the results and it tells you what it would do, but it doesn't actually make the changes. But you can save that plan to a file, and then you can apply that plan, and that's what will actually generate the infrastructure. So this is going to create the random integer, which we know, the ACL for our bucket, and it's going to create our bucket. So it's going to create 3 things. That sounds pretty good. I'm okay with all that. So if you like what you... Yeah?
No, go ahead. I'm watching on this side to see what happens.
Okay. So if you like what you see in the plan file, all you have to do is run terraform apply and feed it the plan file. And in terms of credentials, I ran AWS configure to set up my AWS CLI, and Terraform will use those credentials. Uh-oh. The bucket does not allow ACLs. Okay. So it probably created the bucket, but it's unhappy about something having to do.
I see the bucket. I do see the bucket, so it's here.
Okay. Well, that's good. Well, let's ask, what S3 resource am I missing for? I don't think that was helpful. So usually when I run into an issue like this and I'm like, I don't remember exactly what resources, that's a good time to pull in the documentation and just ask. So let's go to the Terraform registry and we'll go into the AWS provider. Go to the documentation, and we're interested in the S3 service. S3 simple storage. So what do I need if I want to provision a bucket? Well, according to the example, I don't have to do anything but provision the bucket, so I don't even need that ACL.
So does that make that ACL, does that make it private then? Oh, actually.
It does make it private, but if I want to use that ACL, I have to add this additional AWS S3 bucket ownership controls.
I
resource
see it.
because
Yeah,
there's a dependency there.
I see it here. So when I look at the S3 permissions under the bucket, I do see a bucket policy. I do see access control list and a number of different grantees. One is a bucket owner, which is our AWS account, which allows us to list objects and write to them or write to the bucket. And then we can also read and write to the bucket as well. But everything else, like everyone is listed under the public access, can't do anything.
Right.
This is very much a true ACL in its own form. So I like that.
Yeah. So what I did is I looked at the example, and it looks like I was just missing this one resource if I want to use the ACL. And this will also set the ownership better. So I added that block to my configuration, and I can run a new Terraform plan. And since the bucket already exists and the random string already exists, it's not going to try to recreate those two objects. It's going to try to create that ACL and the ownership controls. So I'll
just additive at this point. It's not nice.
I would call it idempotent, right? And there we go. It spit out our bucket name, which is Livestream on main-7281. We've got an S3 bucket.
There we go. I'm seeing it right here. I love it. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. So we've cleared one hurdle. We've created an S3 bucket. Not that that was a tremendous hurdle, but now what do we want to do? We want to put, we want to be able to upload an object to the S3 bucket.
So we could do that directly, or we could do that via Python.
I think I'd rather do it via Python.
All right, let's go.
All right. I created a requirements.txt, but I didn't include the versions for Bodo. Do you have any idea what the current version is?
I can look this up. Handy dandy Google. .36.10.
.10. Okay, cool. That's what I was seeing, but I just wanted to make sure. And the other one we'll probably end up using is time. Looks like that's 1.0.0. All right, cool. So when we get to that point, I just wanted to have my requirements and all my ducks in a row. Okay, so let's create a new Python file. What should we call it? Like S3 upload?
Let's go.
Okay. And you know what? I'm gonna have Copilot try to help me out with this. Write a Python method that uploads a file to S3. What should the arguments be? File path?
I guess so. Like your local system file path.
And bucket name.
Yeah.
And let's say it should return the object URL. All right, let's see what it does. I'm so curious.
Wow.
Okay.
Look at that.
Okay, so it wrote a thing. Let's look at the thing. All right, so it is taking file path. Awesome. And bucket name. That's what we said. It'll grab the file name and it will upload the file using s3.upload file. So there's already a function called upload file in S3 that we're leveraging. Sorry, I should highlight like what line I'm on. So it's going to try to upload the file, and then it's going to construct the object URL based off the bucket name and the file name and return that object URL, and then it has some error handling if it's unable to do it. This is great. I don't know if it's actually going to work, but I like it.
I think we'll get close, or we might run into some error of sorts, but we'll get around it.
All right. And so now we need something that actually implements the method, right? Main method that prompts for the file name and bucket, a file path, say path and bucket name, and uses the upload S3 method. Gonna do.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna accept it. Sure. With all these dotted lines.
So
Oh, is it because
Oh,
I'm like off by my indents?
yeah,
There
we
we
go. That
go.
fixed that.
All
So
right.
if you ran this as it is, would this work, or would we have to like move the order of that main function or main method further
I
up?
don't think you have to move it.
Okay.
Okay. I have no idea if this will work, but I need a file to actually upload.
So we could take a screenshot of our current like stream, and then that could be our file.
Okay.
Say cheese.
Cheeseburgers. All right, I just took a quick screenshot.
Nice.
Okay. I don't even know where that's located. Let me find it on my file system. Should be under screenshots. Okay. All right. So before we do anything, we need to. I'm already in the virtual environment. I did that already. So I think I need to install the requirements, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Pip install requirements. I had it in my history. See if that works. Ooh. All right. I'm in the wrong directory. Well, that's not good. Python examples. All right. No matching for time equals 1.0.
We could just remove the time.
Yeah, I'm not
version.
actually using it. Okay. I think that worked. We have the Python library now. So in theory, I should just be able to run Python S3. Okay. File path. See how well it does with Windows file paths. That's always fun.
Oh wait, do you have a lot of screenshots in there, or just the one?
I have several. I'm getting the full file name now. I don't know if this is going to work. It might not like it. And what was our bucket name?
Livestream on M.A.I.N 7281.
7281 or 18?
81.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It says file uploaded successfully.
It did. I see it here. Look at that. So
Wow.
and it says it's accessible at that URL, so folks can totally like download.
Well, they couldn't because it's not a
they can't.
public bucket, so it's private to us. If we made it public, they could pull it, but at least it. Okay, so this is
okay. So here's the funny thing. When I look at the actual object, it actually called the object the name of your entire file path.
Oh, interesting. Well, that sounds like some debugging we got to do. So yeah, so look at this. It's splitting the file on /.
Oh, interesting.
Well, let's see. Let's like split on backslash for Windows. Now, I think I would now need to use a double backslash, but I'm not sure. Let's find out. Let's run it again.
So I'm curious, will it cause issues if you happen to upload? No, actually, no. It should be a unique name, I guess.
Well, now
We'll
it should
find
be
out.
a totally different name. Okay.
Yeah.
So this looks
it
much
is.
better. Do you have a new one that's just the file name and not the whole path now?
I do, and it's called screenshot. Well, it starts with screenshot, so it drops the C:\\\.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So now we've built into our function the ability to handle Windows or Linux file paths.
That is pretty damn cool.
Yeah. It's so cool that Copilot is helping me write this, but it doesn't do everything right. So I have to at least have some awareness of code and also how Windows and Linux file systems are different to tell it, okay, no, wait, you have to split on backslash if it's Windows or / if it's Linux.
Linux, yeah.
Okay, so wow, so now we've got a Python program that will upload a file to S3. What did we want to do once it's in S3?
So now that we've got it in S3, there's a couple of things we can do. We could somehow feed this into Bedrock to try and maybe describe the image.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like alt text generator or something like that.
Pass an object and see, I don't know if it'll do that.
We could try. So our original plan was to record some audio, which will turn it into which would, have it transcribe into text that we could do something with. But I'm actually curious about whether or not it could take this image and alt text it.
Well, that was not our original remit, but I love it. Let's do it.
Why not, right? Hey, maybe we build an alt text generator.
Dude, I'm gonna swing for the fences right now. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right. Write a method that uses AWS Bedrock, not Bedrocks. That's silly. Bedrock to analyze an image stored in S3. Inputs should be the object URL. Output should the results of this as a string.
I wonder if OpenAI will complain to us saying we don't know how to do this. Ooh, wow. Okay.
All right. So, I think it got a little off on the tab, but that's fine.
So,
okay.
I'm curious how it's doing this. So response equals bedrock.analyze_image. So that's a function of Bedrock.
You know what? Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that there's a really good chance that it's lying to us.
I love how you said it like that.
I don't know that analyze image is a legit thing that you can do with Bedrock. That's why I'm saying, maybe that's a function that exists, maybe it's not. So I think what we need to do is go to the Bedrock Bodo library and find out if that's a valid function you can actually call. So Bedrock Bodo 3. Okay. This let me make it bigger. That's not big. Is this good?
Yep.
All right. And so what was it? What was the function?
Analyze image.
Yeah, that's
Don't.
definitely not one of
So we
available
just
now.
made up an image on its own.
So
Made up a function on its own. Okay.
it absolutely made up a function for the library that, as far as I can tell, does not exist. Which is fine. Like, I didn't
can make
expect
our
it
own,
to
though.
work.
We can make our own.
We can. Analyze. Yes, I was looking up white balance at one point for my camera. Analyze image with Bedrock. Oh, there's a Medium article, or we could look at there's repository code sample. Let's go with the official like Bedrock samples.
Might need to increase the
Oh, yeah.
size there. There we go.
Gotta find out what this chill wave music you've got going is.
I will tell you, it is called the Into Space. That's what it's called, literally.
Into space.
Yep, Into Space.
Okay, so this could be useful. So this is someone who put together. Oh, it's an AWS sample, which is perfect. It's using Claude 3 and AWS Lambda to analyze an image, which is like close to what we're trying to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's using Python. Great. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is probably closer to what we actually want.
So do we need to use Lambda is the next question.
We don't. Lambda is just the way that they're handling it. They're probably taking an event, which is that an item was added to an S3 bucket.
Mm-hmm.
And then that event is triggering this Lambda to kick off. And then it's going to go do what's in the Lambda. But we can just do that manually. We don't actually have to have Lambda. Okay, get object, encode the image in base 64. Create a payload for Bedrock invoke. Convert it to bytes.
Yeah.
Invoke the model. Okay, so I think like we're pretty close on this. I think we can borrow some of the work that we did last week and then add in some of this work here.
So I'm actually curious if the runtime that I picked or the model that I picked last time will be able to do that.
That's a good question. That I don't know.
Because that one was only text generation, text light. But I guess if we don't set a model ID, it doesn't really matter. And this either might just error out.
Well, I think we do need to set a model ID. So we'll start. We'll call this one Bedrock, right? So here's our Bedrock client. And then what did you need to do in here? You set the model ID. And then we can change this, if it doesn't work out. And then I think we need to go to this part where it looks like we're going to need some additional libraries at some point.
Yeah,
okay.
It's because
Bedrock
we're passing that payload in JSON format.
Mm-hmm. We're going to need an S3 client. Okay, I'm here.
Look who showed up.
Oh no. Who invited this guy?
We using Nova Pro? Oh, actually, he's offering up a suggestion for us. Might need to look into Nova Pro.
Maybe. Okay. All right, so this is a little bit different. Get S3 Sure. Okay. So I am just following along with the example a little bit. And then create a base 64 encoded image. Makes sense, right? Because we're working in the world of HTTP. I'm going to have to import base 64. And while we're at it, I'm going to have to import JSON. So I'll just do that now.
So what are we using for AI Auto? Yeah, we're using GitHub Copilot, and you're using
GitHub
GPT.
Copilot, and I believe I'm just using the default model.
GPT-4 Mini?
Yeah.
4.0 Mini?
Probably GPT-4. Okay, so once we have that, we have to create our payload, convert it to bytes, and then invoke the model, process the response, and return the result. Okay. We're going big. I didn't pay, right?
By the way, Andrew, I mean, technically, if we just used a single cloud provider, maybe this might be a lot faster. But I like the idea of multi-cloud. You know, a little bit of Microsoft, a little bit of AWS.
All right, so we're getting the S3 bucket. We're reading the image content from the body of that response, and we're creating a payload. Now, this is specifying in Claude 3 Sonnet.
So I guess the model,
But we're defining a model ID up here, so I can just replace this.
that might not be turned on in my model list, but let me double check.
That's okay. I'm going to put the variable in there for the payload, and then if we need to update it, we can. All right, so... Oh, see, this... But the payload is Anthropic specific.
So we can swap it, and I could just go ahead and enable Claude 3.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, let me do that. Unfortunately, because I'm using CA, why do I need to specify a company name?
All right, and it looks like we need a prompt. Where did that prompt come from?
I'm going to say I operate in the education service.
You do. We're educating.
Mm-hmm. I've got to give a justification, so
Mm-hmm.
let's see what happens.
Oh, here's the prompt.
In progress. Let's see. Someone probably has to manually approve this, I guess.
Nope. I've enabled it before, and they did not need to do that.
It does say in progress, so it may take several minutes. That's not a bad thing.
Well, it's going to take me at least several minutes to get this all.
Took me 5 months to get access to Google, Gemma. They really didn't want me to touch it. Oh, Andrew.
Okay. All right, so let's set prompt. Okay.
Andrew's
There we
like,
go.
you saw that NVIDIA stock dropped after my.
Oh, were you the one who made the NVIDIA stock drop off? Everybody took the deep sea course and was like, abandon ship, we're out. Forget about
It's
it.
hilarious. All right, we're good with the
Are we?
Claude. Yep, we're
Oh
good.
my goodness. All right. And I think there's no way this runs right the first time.
No, it's well, I mean, we can always try and then we'll figure it out as we go along.
Yeah, next week might be the debugging week. But let's find out. Let's see what happens. I've already uploaded the file. I guess we're not really testing just the upload process. That's fine. Okay. Let's do a different file this time. What's this? No. I'll just rename the file we were using.
That works for me.
Hey. Get that path again. And that was live stream on main-721. Whoa, nope.
What happened? All right. The file went up successfully. We got stuck elsewhere.
We did.
Line 101.
Line 101. That's main. So we need the call. Then we need to look at the stack trace. 96. 30. Okay, so whatever madness it was trying to do here absolutely did not work. So maybe instead of the object URL, we pass it the bucket name and the object name. We were trying to get too cute with it.
Andrew's like, I didn't even know there was an analyze_image endpoint. This is definitely just not. This is just Copilot like pretending that it thinks it knows everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it was hilarious that it tried. So we bucket name object. Why is it angry about that? I don't know. Oh. The object name is just going to be Yep, that's what we want. Split the URL and give me the very last element. Perfect. Okay. It probably successfully uploaded that object.
Yeah, I can check. Let's see, S3. Yep, I see it there. Main.png.
Well, we'll see if it can overwrite it. All right, it had. Oh, the image appears to be a screenshot. It did it, dude. It worked. The image appears to be a screenshot of a code editor or development environment showing some Python code related to uploading files to an Amazon S3 bucket.
Wow.
Yeah.
So can you go back to the actual code for a second? I want to see what was it that gave us the response? Like something in here was able to do the analysis.
So we built the payload that we're going to send over to the Claude 3.
Mhm.
And included in there in the content of the message was the encoded image and then a text prompt. And the prompt was one of the method inputs along with the object name and the bucket name. And I just put a hard-coded prompt in.
You are an image. There we go. Okay. So
Please tell us if the provided photo contains sensitive information in the results tag with a yes or no in the reason tag. So this was the prompt that was from the code example that I was copying it over from. So wow, we did it. We had it analyze an image. And so the next thing to do would be, instead of having our Python do this, set up a Lambda that when we upload a file to S3, the Lambda fires this off to talk to Bedrock and do this work for us. But I think that's a next week kind of thing, because we are at time.
We are totally at time. But that was fun. Wow. The power of Python, a little bit of S3, a lot of Ned, with Terraform in action as well. Look at what we got.
Yeah. So I don't have an exact plan for next week, but I think we might end up deploying a Lambda with Terraform to automate this process for us to set up that linkage.
I'm going to need you to walk me through that, because I'll probably be driving next week and I have no idea what I'm doing with Terraform. All right, folks. Well, you saw what we did. We set up an S3 bucket with Terraform thanks to Ned. We were able to upload some files with Python into an S3 bucket by taking a screenshot of us, and we put it in a file path here.
Mm-hmm.
And then we used Bedrock, and specifically the Claude. Which one? Which model did we use? Do you know?
We used Claude Sonnet.
There we go. So we used Claude Sonnet to do image analysis and tell us that there was no sensitive information in the screenshot we uploaded. Will you look at that? We are so close to getting an AI agent going, rocking, whatever. All right. I had fun, Ned. That was amazing.
That was awesome. That was time well spent. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I guess we'll see all of you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
See y'all next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye.